So, Eimear, we've had a very big breaking news story this week with the arrest of probably one of the most notorious gangland criminals in the country. And then also, curiously, or certainly interestingly, the arrest of a legal professional, a woman who was romantically linked to Robbie Lawlor, as well as a man who's suspected of being a key figure in the Drogheda feud. Tell us about the arrest of Mr. Big first.
Yeah, so Mr. Big was arrested on Thursday, and we've been writing about him for many years. He is considered one of the main gangland players, criminals in the country. He is, suspected of running a well-organised drugs gang. He's been suspected of, his gang are suspected of several murders, and he's also been suspected of involvement in tiger kidnappings in the past. So he was arrested in relation to this organised crime probe. It's kind of been kept quite broad, like the Garda statement says, an organised crime investigation, but we know that it is the arrest under anti-gangland legislation, which gives Gardaí 7 days to question the suspects. And we also know that it's relating to criminal activity in the northeast of the country, which would take in obviously Dublin, Meath, but also Drogheda, where there was a massive feud that Mr. Big was on one side of and Robbie Lawlor was on the other side. So I suppose that's what's kind of been a bit ironic about this arrest. Came a day after 2 arrests, which were of associates of Robbie Lawlor, Mr. Big's basically gangland enemy. Yeah,
now those 2 people, they included, I suppose, one of the sort of an unusual combination, an unusual romantic partner for Robbie Lawlor. As people will know, listen to this podcast, Robbie Lawlor was one of the most feared, violent and dangerous gangland criminals of the last couple of decades. Certainly, it absolutely brutally murdered Cian Mulready Woods, chopped his body up. Cian Mulready Woods was just a child and scattered his body parts across a couple of counties, a murder that made headlines across the world and was sort of unmatched in its violence and gruesomeness when Robbie Lawlor did that. But at the same time, he was involved in a romantic relationship with this woman. That woman and the other suspected criminal have now been released without charge. But tell us what we know about her.
Yeah, so she was arrested on Wednesday morning along with this criminal who has kind of essentially been described as Robbie Lawlor's boss in some ways. Like, he would have led activities on one side of the feud in Drogheda, and he was actually the person Robbie Lawlor was seen on CCTV footage near this guy's home shortly after Cian Mulready Wood's murder. So him and this woman were arrested early on Wednesday morning. And I suppose we've written about this woman in the past because this relationship came to light after Robbie Lawlor was murdered. But we do know that following his murder, she received a letter from Robbie Lawlor's gangland enemies to basically threaten her and say, we're aware of your relationship. And the letter detailed kind of chilling things about her life, about her home, and it seems that they actually had been planning a hit on Robbie Lawlor at her home, and a security light went off and spooked the gunman. So obviously they were targeting Robbie Lawlor, but that wouldn't have been good for her at all. And I guess then the Garda awareness of her relationship with Robbie Lawlor came to light then when they became concerned. Gardaí became concerned when they saw Robbie Lawlor leave flowers on her car near a courthouse, and they were concerned that he was trying to intimidate a legal professional and approached her. And it's kind of been told that she giggled, and that then they became aware that she didn't mind this and that maybe she was aware of it, and was there a relationship there. And I suppose such was the concern about this woman, who was very well respected and well known in the legal industry, that her involvement with one of kind of, I suppose, Ireland's most psychotic gangland killers was that Prissy Mangan, who would have been one of the most senior Gardaí in Drogheda, would have been heavily involved in policing the Drogheda feud, that he actually contacted the then Garda Commissioner Drew Harris to raise concerns about this relationship.
Yeah, because this woman as well had applied for a job at the Criminal Assets Bureau and certainly, seemed to have progressed through a number of stages. And obviously, the guards weren't comfortable. Some Gardaí would not have been comfortable with that. Now, the other man arrested would have been a close associate of Richie Carberry, who was Robbie Lawlor's brother-in-law. And Richie Carberry, this criminal who was arrested and is now being released, Robbie Lawlor Mr. Big would have all grown up in North Dublin. And obviously Mr. Big and Robbie Lawlor had a deep falling out, I suppose, even though they would have been at one stage, would have worked together and would have been certainly friendly enough. And probably the origin of Robbie Lawlor's murder comes after a guy called Ken Finn is shot dead.
Yeah.
Now, Ken Finn would have been, I suppose, the primary enforcer for Mr. Big, but would have been genuinely quite pally, I think, with Robbie Lawlor back in the day. They were famously involved, seen drinking together before another murder. Ken Finn, while having a low profile in the media terms, would have been somebody that was, a sort of feared character, in particular because he was suspected of involvement in the murder of Alan Ryan, the real IRA figure, and Mr. Big is believed to have arranged that murder as well. However, he was shot dead. Robbie Lawlor was the chief suspect, and ever since then, Mr. Big is said to have been coming for Robbie Lawlor. Now, Robbie Lawlor was shot dead in 2020 in Belfast. He was up visiting an individual, and he was shot dead in the garden of a house in West Belfast. And when this happened during the lockdown is one thing, but all of this happened on the back, or at this sort of particular time in gangland history, when the Encrochat hack occurred. Now, the Encrochat hack was the Encrochat are encrypted phones that were being used by criminals for years, and over the years they felt none of these communications were going to get caught. They started getting increasingly comfortable. They were used all over Europe, but at some time, the international police forces managed to hack into them, intercept all of the messages over a certain number of months, and downloaded them, sent them to all the individual police forces. And they had this incredible snapshot of criminal activity across the continent. And it was in this period of time where Robbie Lawlor was murdered. And of course, we believe, and we've written before, how the messages in or around this murder, have Mr. Big is being investigated for that.
Yeah.
What have we written before about Encrochat, Mr. Big and Dubai?
I suppose we've written that Mr. Big was believed, that we only wrote this a few months ago, earlier in 2025, that Mr. Big is believed to have fled to Dubai because he became paranoid that he was going to be arrested in relation to the murder of Robbie Lawlor. And we know that Encrochat was a big part of this. Obviously, as you, Nicola, have said many times, Encrochat hasn't actually been used in Ireland in terms of prosecution, but has been used so successfully elsewhere. And, whether or not it stands up in a court, I suppose there's still messages there. So this was all around that. And we know that, this was an active Garda investigation in relation to his alleged role in Lawlor's murder. And I suppose this week it's slightly confusing in the sense that he's been arrested as part of an organised crime investigation, and we know that it's looking at gangland activities in relation to the Feud in Drogheda and the surrounding areas. But we also know that at the same time this Garda investigation has been going on, and I suppose it's ironic in that, the other two people arrested in the investigation who have now been released are the associates of Mr. Big's enemy, Robbie Lawlor, and they've all been arrested together. But yeah, we had been sort of, I suppose, riding that, not to be pun, but was riding on the wall for him in recent times. And, it seems that he has been, after evading kind of any serious conviction, that's why he's called Mr. Big. He doesn't have any, despite being so entrenched in gangland and being described as one of the most ruthless criminals we've seen in this country. He hasn't any serious convictions, but it looks like, the heat has been turned up on him anyway.
So we don't know the full details of this investigation, right? But we do know what happened with Encrochat in other countries, in the UK in particular. So what happened with Encrochat was, up until the Encrochat hack, a lot of the people being arrested and being put away and being jailed were the guys who collected the drugs, the guys who shot the weapons, the guys who did all of that donkey work, because the police would, catch them red-handed or catch them through movements of phones or CCTV. But there was always this layer at the top who due to the fact that they never put their hands on any drugs, they were never in the same room as any guns, they were never, meeting people in directly, they kind of managed to evade capture. If they got big enough, it was much, much harder to capture them. Now, what Encrochat did was they were able to read these messages live. So I would say to you, go and collect, what do they always call them? The pineapple or whatever. They'd have whatever, the computers, I think, was it the Kinnins used to call stuff or whatever.
And they got Liam Byrne, didn't they, in the bomber, Thomas Bomber Cabinet investigation.
Exactly. So he was on Encrochat. So, I mean, there was loads of Irish people on Encrochat, loads of Irish criminals. But what it managed to do was, if there was a message I sent to you, Eimear, go and firebomb him. Or whatever.
Absolutely not. That's against the law.
Whatever. Right. But and then what the police would be able to show was, yes, a firebombing occurred that night. Now, the Encrochat managed to connect me, Mr. Huge.
Silver Fox.
The Silver Fox managed to connect me directly to the crime in a way that would have been almost impossible before. So when they say, we've brought in this anti-gangland legislation, it was brought in by Michael McDowell many years ago, and that allows the guards to prosecute people, or the DPP to prosecute people, by allowing them to be part of a criminal organisation. It doesn't have to be me firebombing it. If the police can show that I said it to you and then it occurred, you're able to, and we've seen it again and again, people being done for
facilitating an organised,
or participating in a criminal organisation, or being done for, a crime, facilitating the criminal organisation in the murder of. So it doesn't have to put me, and the people have been done for things like tracking devices, which obviously, I don't know if it's actually illegal to put a tracker on somebody. It probably isn't particularly illegal, but it is illegal if that tracker can then be connected to a murder attempt. And we've seen that again and again. So, as I said, we don't know the exact details, but we've seen what happened in another country, and we've seen what happens in some of the investigations into the Hutch Kinahan organisation. And we can say, Mr. Big, we can say with pretty good confidence, you didn't shoot Robbie Lawlor. You didn't carry the gun up to Robbie Lawlor.
No.
So things like that he didn't do. But the guards certainly are going to be looking to put the pieces together with evidence that they already have in connecting with messages or other ways in which the criminal organisations operate.
Yeah.
Now, you brought up a good point, saying we haven't seen Encrochat used we have heard the mentions of Encrochat in courts.
Yeah.
And we have heard mentions of in people using Encrochat, Liam Byrne, one, Patrick Keating, and many others. But they haven't been the primary evidence in an Irish criminal investigation.
No. And I suppose that's going to be the interesting thing, because I imagine if this ever did go to court, or any other case involving Encrochat, that's probably the fear by authorities here, that there will be a legal challenge. And it has gone to the highest court levels in other countries. But I suppose if that hurdle can be surpassed, then you do have that evidence. Messaging evidence is very strong evidence, in terms of, sometimes you hear murders being prosecuted on circumstantial evidence, where I think, one of Barry Young, who would have been another gangland associate of Robbie Lawlor, he was caught on WhatsApp messages, wasn't he? So, you still have that physical, that kind of you can put it on a date and a time. So if they can get over the hurdle of the legitimacy of Encrochat in a courtroom, then I think, if you can use messaging, then it is strong evidence to be able to put forward.
Well, it is. And of course, the complications of an Encrochat, a challenge to the use of Encrochat evidence, we don't know, because it hasn't been heard. But obviously, some of the complexities are how the evidence was harvested. And the fact that it wasn't necessarily harvested by the guards in this country under warrant. I mean, that wasn't what happened. We know what happened. So the Irish have been, and Nicola has been banging on about it, as I say, for many years. But there will be genuine legal complexities about where the source of information is. However, as you said, this has happened across Europe. Many people have brought challenges, and it hasn't succeeded in other countries. So at the moment, Mr. B can be held for 7 days. The other two have been released. And it's no doubt a story we're going to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can be held for 7. They were only held for 2, but a file will be sent to the Director of Public Prosecutions in relation to them. And then we don't know how long Mr. Big is going to be held for. But I suppose this is, even if there's no charges rising out of this specific arrest, these arrests this week, definitely won't be the last that we've heard of it. It's a very complex web of relationships there, and it's a very interesting story. So I think this is just the start of it, really.
It is, and we will definitely come back to it next week again. Okay, thanks, Eimear.
Thanks, Niall.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.